What is up, everybody? It is another episode of In the Blender with your host, Shake Money, man. And as always, we always have a special guest to interview to find out why he is a Dolphin fan. But before we do that...
Morning, Your Majesty. It is another beautiful day in Zamunda.
You know how it is, man. But anyway, as always, we always do a theme in our opening monologue, and today's theme is about the DDC Cancer Challenge that started in 2010 because of the one, the only Jim Mandich. And as of right now, they have raised up to $53 million. That is amazing. It starts usually every February. They do a bike, fundraiser, and 100% of it goes to the Sylvester Foundation in the University of Miami. 100% of that goes to fight cancer, man. If you have lost a loved one due to cancer, man, you would understand why they do this. Jim Mandich was a great voice of this community. As a matter of fact, when I used to watch Dolphin games, I used to turn down the radio and listen to Jim Mandich. I'd rather listen to Jim Mandich than the national broadcasters. I think he was witty. He was great. He called it like he's seen it. He was fair, good, bad, or indifferent. He didn't care if you were for the team or against, playing for the Miami Dolphins. If you played like garbage, he's going to call you out. You know what I mean? And he had a great show on QAM, the Mad Dog. Another thing about him, I used to work in the suites at the time. It was called Pro Player back in 2004. And in between the suites, you could listen to Jim Mandich broadcast. And I couldn't wait to get another ticket so I could, in between the deliveries, listen to Jim Mandich call the games, man. Not call the games, but be the color commentator, if you will. He was an old school, no nonsense type of guy. He had a construction business. And unfortunately, we lost him due to cancer. And I know that's why it all started back in 2010. He passed away in 2011. Nat Moore always says, whenever you hear him interview about the Cancer Challenge, he always brings up Jim Mandich and how good of a friend he was. So, and like I always do, every theme I have connects to the guest that I'm about to bring up. So this next guest is about spreading kindness and love. Back last year when we had a hurricane, Gorilla Luke had some unfortunate incidents. Incidents happened. He lost his house because of this hurricane. And Stephen D on a Friday afternoon, raised money for the victims of this hurricane. We had an incident in Buffalo. He raised money for that as well. So without further ado, I'd like to bring you Mr. Spread Kindness himself, Stephen Daniels. It is an honor and privilege to have you on this show, brother.
What's up, man? I'm excited to be here. Shake Money in the building. What's good?
You know how it is, man. By the way, I heard your show today, man. It was epic, man.
I try. I wake up every day and try to put my best foot forward.
Like always, man.
What's up?
Of course, everybody loves Wildin' Out Wednesdays.
Wildin' Out Wednesdays, man, is a great show. It's one of my favorite shows. I'm sure we'll get into talk about the show a little bit later on, and kind of how the process of coming up with a lot of that stuff. And I definitely want to share some of that with you and the fans.
Yeah, for sure.
It'll be fun.
So, all right. So, with no further ado, how did you become a Dolphin fan? Being that from the Maryland area.
For me, I'm not originally from the Maryland area. My dad, I'm a military brat, so I've lived all up and down the East Coast. You've named it on the East Coast. I've lived there, and so my dad being in the Navy, grew up in Connecticut and loved Boston, everything except for he never liked the Patriots, and he collected football cards as a kid. And so I had some of the original like 1966 football cards all the way through like 1975. I had 1972 too. So of Miami Dolphins cards. And my dad didn't realize there was that many, but there was, I think, at one point. And I don't know if I ended up collecting some of those and some of those were his, but he had some of the cards and then I ended up collecting on my own. But nonetheless, I, was young and Dan Marino was big. And I just fell in love with the Dolphins because of my dad and Dan Marino. There was just something about that team that I just could not get enough of it. And I grew up a majority of my childhood in North Carolina, right below Norfolk, Virginia. My dad was stationed in Norfolk, Virginia, and we lived on the border in North Carolina. And so I was the only Dolphins fan there. And, I love the team. I love the colors. I love the players.
Yeah.
Never get enough of them. And, for me, and I spent my last 3 years of high school on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, and that's when I ended up moving up to Maryland. But nonetheless, as far as the Dolphins are concerned, what's kind of funny about them is they've been asphyxiated, or I've been attached to them my entire life. I had a really good friend of mine who passed away, I don't know, several years ago, Walter. And we went to his funeral, my wife and I, and we're at his funeral, and his mom, and Walter was my age, right? I'm in my mid-30s. Walter was my age. And his mom comes up to me at her son's funeral and goes, "You're not wearing any Dolphin stuff." At her son's funeral, made a joke.
Wow.
And and it was funny because I ended up seeing people that I haven't seen there since I was 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. I mean, all through my childhood. And the number one thing they said, "Are you still a Dolphins fan? Do you still root for the Dolphins?" And that's hilarious that people still attached me to being a Dolphins fan growing up. And so, I just loved it, man. There was nothing about the Dolphins that I didn't love. Everything about them I loved growing up.
Well, it's funny you say that, not the story, but, it's a coincidence that I had Vic last week, and he was telling me about how his brother passed away in the line of duty. He was a police officer, and the one thing he wanted was to have the Dolphins logo on his casket. So he reached out to the Miami Dolphins. And during the funeral, one of the songs that they were playing was the Miami Dolphins fight song.
Yeah.
And Wayne Huizenga. Yeah, Wayne Huizenga. Me too. Because Wayne Huizenga, as a matter of fact, took him out to the game. I'm going to be clipping that up on Instagram. So look out for that clip. Awesome. So yeah, my best friend who passed away, I lost my best friend. He was like a big brother to me. And if you ever see me on camera, you'll see there's a Pittsburgh Steelers, like in my man cave, there's a Pittsburgh Steelers terrible towel there. And that was his terrible towel. They had him they put him over the casket in his funeral.
Yep.
I made sure I took one of the towels, especially the one I gave him, because that was the last thing I gave him, was that terrible towel. So
friendships in football are always a really, kind of cool thing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll get into the friendships that we've developed through being a Dolphins fan. But, it's so funny that, we grow up and we can always attach some sort of football aspect to friendship, and how that's kind of made people closer or people remember you because of that. And so, yeah, you're right, man. It's not funny, but it is to a certain extent too. It's like, man, you live your whole life and you just get known to being a Dolphins fan. What? Or a Steelers fan in your friend's case. And it's the things we attach ourselves to. And, my dad didn't love me that much. And so he made me a Dolphins fan. I curse him every day for it. God.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And what's funny is, at least for my family says I'm a easy person to shop for Christmas. Just get me anything Miami Dolphins or Florida Gators, and I'll be sound as a pound.
You'll be happy.
Hell yeah.
Yep.
Doesn't take much, man. And the one thing that
not Florida Gators stuff. It's all about the U, baby. But nonetheless, neither here or there.
That's all good and ass. That's fine. And No, congratulations to the University of Miami for making the Final Four, man. That's awesome, men and women.
Awesome.
Listen,
Yeah.
man, you
the
can't
women didn't
deny.
make it to the Final Four, but the men did, and that
They did.
No, the women made it to the Elite Eight, and they lost to LSU the other night, and it was a tough loss. But
that sucks.
But the men are there along with FAU, South Florida in the building. You thought South Florida was a football powerhouse? No, sir. Sir. It's definitely the basketball center of the basketball universe at the moment, which I love. I'm all about.
That's what's up. Hell yeah. But no, what I was gonna say is, on your show, there's one guest that pops up, and they call him every name under the sun. And you know what I'm talking about, Pete. And but what's amazing and touched me was the fact that when shit got real and he lost a member of his loved one, you seen the community come together to console him.
Yep.
You put all these football takes, all the name calling, and
aside,
when it got real,
they
showed their true colors, and that's awesome. They're like, you know what? It's bigger than football. You're our brother at the end of the day. We disagree with you, but you know what I'm saying? Friendship. It was just amazing, man.
You know, it's one of the reasons, I've been doing my channel now for 2.5 years. So let's kind of rewind a little bit. So I been a Dolphins fan my entire life. I'd never really ever met other Dolphins fans. And it wasn't until Facebook that I started finding other Dolphin the online community for Dolphins. Yeah. And that's how I met Solo D. And I met Solo D probably, and I found out Solo D was living in DC at the time, and I live in Baltimore. And we met at a Dave & Buster's or Buffalo Wild Wings, one of the two, in Arundel Mills. That I know that doesn't necessarily mean, but it's between Baltimore and DC. Yeah. And we met and we talked for like an hour and a half. And I was like, dude, I'm a big fan. I love your music. I think you got something here. I want to be a part of it. I want to do stuff with you. I think you got something. And I was working in radio at the time as a producer. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to be involved. I just wanted to reach out and touch somebody in the Dolphins community who loved and was passionate about the Dolphins the way I was. And by this point, Solo had been doing this for a couple of years already, I believe. And or at least a year. And we got to talking, and that's where the friendship and professional relationship kind of developed. And so throughout the years, I would help. He would go to the MetLife Takeover, which we'll talk about that because they do a lot of stuff with the Dolphins Cancer Challenge too. Shout out to Michelle and Igor. But we would go up there and he would perform, and I would sell shirts with him. And the DWA brand was alive and well, and it was a big thing, right? And we ended up creating this friendship over the years. And for years, he would always tell me, Steven, you love radio. You need to do your own online content. And I ignored him, and I shouldn't have, because I could have been, one of the pioneers like Dudley Do Wrong and TD Fins Talk and Reason. And, I could have been a pioneer just like them when it comes to the online community for the Dolphins. But I never listened to him. And I don't know why, but I didn't. I'm hard-headed sometimes. So about 2.5 years ago, I got a chance. Big O was running an online network, and I told Solo about it. And Solo's like, if you don't do it on our network, we have a YouTube channel. You better do it. You have a base there. Go start it. So I started doing the show. My wife came up with the name Clock Blockers. And it was a passion, right? Always a passion project. But one of the reasons for me wanting to do it was, and this is no true big knock on local radio market. Like, I have passion for WQAM, obviously Jim Mandich, right? But I always felt like local media outlets never gave the coverage or the outlet for Miami Dolphins fans that they deserved. And I think that's why you saw TD Fins Talk, Reason, Dudley Do Wrong obviously create their outlets on YouTube, right? And Kay Flexen and a lot of, and I know I'm missing a lot of other people, but those are like some of the ones that started from 4 or 5 years ago.
Let me jump in real quick. The one thing about the terrestrial radio is the fact that there's a month of commercials and about a week of of content.
Of
So
real content.
so you probably get like 10 minutes of Jim Mandich talking, whatever. Then all of a
You get
sudden
25
you got 2
minutes of
minutes
radio or
of
of
commercials. Yeah,
Come on
you'd be like,
down.
yeah. So you'd be like, it's kind of like, damn, man, come on. When are they going to get to the content? You know,
That's a great look. I'm somebody who went to broadcasting school for
so
news
did
and,
I, by the way.
news and sports. I went to the Broadcasting Institute of Maryland. It was there for 60 something years, and then back in the mid 2000s, it went out of business because terrestrial radio was a thing of the past. People weren't working at radio stations. I was working at CBS Radio in 2007, and at that time they had 130 employees one day, and then the next day they had 75. And I was like I was a producer. I was laid off, in 2007 from working at CBS Radio in Baltimore. But aside from that, I decided to start my show, Clock Blockers. My wife made up the name, and it's evolved over the last 2.5, almost 3 years. And part of me doing it was to reach a community that I could reach out and touch, because I had been doing stuff with Solo D for so long, and I enjoyed it and I love it, and I've met a lot of amazing people through it. And then I wanted to bring in my passion, which was I want to be in media. I want to run my own podcast. I want to have my own podcast network. There's a lot of things that I want to do with this, but I want to do it for the team that I love and I have a passion for, which is the Dolphins. And so for me, it was a no-brainer to obviously bring those worlds together. And eventually I got my head out of my butt and I started doing it. And it's been a roller coaster. But I've been doing it now for almost 3 years, and I'm going into my third full season doing it. When football season starts, it'll be the start of my third season doing YouTube and podcasting. So I'm excited about it, and for me, it was an opportunity to allow me to interact with other Dolphins fans, and I knew I wanted to do a couple things with it. Number one, I wanted to be able to use my voice to share my opinion. Right, like I have an opinion about things. My teams, I love them. They've been mediocre for 20 plus years, but I have an opinion about this and I want people to hear my opinion. Now, if people don't want to hear my opinion, that's fine too, but at least they'll have a choice, right? The other thing that I wanted to do, and this is probably the most important thing, is I wanted to give other fans an opportunity to voice their opinion. I know that in radio, hey, Matt, where are you calling from? Matt, Oakland Park, long time. First time, long time. I just wanted to say, I think the offensive line, and he gets one or two sentences out and then they drop him from the line, right?
Yeah. And also, not to mention, a lot of these callers, they're choked up with anxiety because they're like, I'm talking to Jim Mandich, and they kind of, and trust me, I was like that too, man. I remember calling in my first show and I could literally hear my heartbeat, bro, because I was like, so freaking nervous, you know what I mean, that I didn't want to slip up, and I ended up slipping up.
Well, and so and you're right, 100%, right? Callers obviously do that, and so I hated the fact that and it's funny because I say I have an opinion about things, right? Here's the reality: I want to hear other people's opinions, and I want to hear other people's debates, and I want that back and forth. What I don't want to listen to is in the 10 minutes of the radio I get to listen to hear whoever's behind the mic talk for, and not allow anybody else the real opportunity to debate them, or because their narrative gets played out as that's what the reality is. We live in a different world now where there's 15 to 30 different outlets on one platform alone, YouTube. Then you also have Twitch. Then you also have radio. Then you have regular podcasting. Then you have audio form podcasting. And with the Miami Dolphins, I mean, there's probably 50 different podcasts, YouTube, real podcast, audio podcasting, radio, everything that you can go out and listen to somebody talk about the Miami Dolphins. I love it. I'm here for it. I think it's an amazing community, an amazing thing to do. And if more people want to get into it, so be it. I don't think there's such a thing as, oversaturation of a market. I want more people to get into it. I want more people to follow their passion. And the goal is as we get to know each other and work together, we all help each other and create one big community. And that's ultimately what I want to do. And I think I've done that. And the third thing I wanted to do is have an opportunity to directly be a positive influence on issue. I'm a very emotional person. A lot of people don't know this.
Yeah.
I struggle with anxiety and depression. And, for me, things in the real world hit close to home. And I remember when I first started the podcast network about 2.5 years ago, the building collapse had just happened in Surfside. And I got a chance to work directly with Channel 4, or what's the CBS 4, right? Is the CBS 4 that's down there for the Dolphins?
Yeah, CBS 4.
Yep, and we got to work with their charity group that does a lot of stuff that was helping out with the Surfside first responder or Surfside first responders. And that first show, I think we raised $1,000, and it was great because that, by the way, that 1,000 that I'm talking about is what we raised for that thing alone. Is $1,000 going to make a difference at the end of the day? I mean, it might not put a dent into obviously what they did, but it was $1,000 that they didn't have before, and I did it on my platform, and it was amazing. It was awesome that I could contribute something to that.
The way I like to see it is, for instance, you raise $1,000, somebody else raises 1,000, somebody else raises 1,000. When it comes together, that's where the 100%. Difference.
It all counts. Every dollar counts. I agree with that statement. Hence why when I talk about donations or I'm raising money for a particular thing, I'm always like, hey, look, a portion of the proceeds is going to go towards, X, Y, or Z. And so I try to do that a lot, actually, because I feel like if people not only feel like they're giving to the channel or giving to, me from a standpoint of wanting to see more content and see this thing go somewhere, I can also help other people too, which I love. My moniker, and I don't know if I like calling it that, but it's probably what it is, but it's real, right? Spread kindness, positivity, and love. Like, that is who I am. If I can help people, I want to spread it. I think there's too much hate in this world. I think there's too much negativity. I hate it. I hate the hate, right? And it's not just like Dolphins talk hate. I'm talking about like real world hate.
Yeah.
Real world, like, and I feel like we can reach so many more people with love and positivity and kindness. Kindness defeats all, in my opinion. And I really mean that. And so I feel like I've been able to raise money for, with that moniker and who I am, I've been able to raise money for Surfside victims, Dolphins Cancer Challenge, obviously.
The hurricane that just passed.
With you touched on, Gorilla Luke's a good friend of mine. And Allie, who lives in the Naples area, is probably one of my best friends, Dolph Freaky. And that whole place was hit very hard. And so to be able to help raise money on my channel to directly affect people that were affected by it and in the form of a monetary, to say, hey, look, this isn't much, but I can help you. And it was a beautiful thing. And I love it. And I would do it again.
By the way, I live like 10, 15 minutes away from Gorilla Luke on the car, but how directions he gave.
Yeah.
So I live like, so I know firsthand
you saw the damage. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know that my money went to where it was going, which is another great thing, right? And so it's funny because, this is what I tell people when I raise money for anything on the channel. A portion of the proceeds are going to go towards X, Y, or Z. And it's funny because some people will be like, oh, well, how much is going? How much? Couple things. YouTube takes out like 50% of any. It's like 46%, but it's close to 50% of all the donations that come through the door. And then I do what I do Monday through Friday, or I try to, right? This is my job. I don't have another full-time job. This is what I do. So the fact that I've been able to raise, and this is accurate, thousands of dollars for other great, awesome things that people need, I'm very proud of that fact. And I think that gets lost sometimes. There are people like, oh, it's not 100% going to this. I want to put that out there that for me, I'm all about, like this past the Dolphins Cancer Challenge that I did with Jason Sarney on that Friday. I was like, look, match every donation that you give to me, match to Jason's Dolphins Cancer Challenge. and he went from, I think he had $295, and by the end of the show, and that was on his link for the Dolphins Cancer Challenge, and by the end of the show, he had 1,135, and that was from a 2.5-hour show of just, hey, you guys donate to me, whatever you do, donate to him. And the fans that watched did that, and it was a beautiful thing. And so I think that as long as I have my platform, I'm going to raise money for awesome, things like the Dolphins Cancer Challenge, or if something bad. Unfortunately, we just had another, bad thing happen in the world today in Nashville, and I want to be able to raise money for. It's not much, but $1 it goes such a long way, and in a horrible time like that for those Surfside victims, for the first responders that were dealing with it, they were able to use that money to purchase food and bottles of water and just have a really good meal because they were going through that rubble. Or I know Luke and Allie used the funds that I made for her, and she directly used those funds to buy supplies for people that needed supplies when the hurricane came through. Luke obviously used that money and didn't necessarily even keep it for himself. He gave it to some of his neighbors so that they could get supplies and stuff that they could use. So Dolphin fans being able to help other Dolphins fans is one of the best parts about having a YouTube channel. And I love every second of it. And I can't wait to do more in it. And it's one of the reasons that, keeps me going every day.
Yeah. And trust me, I'm one of the people that they love to give. You know what I mean? I'm one of those guys that pay swear jars all the time, especially EMs.
Swear jar is real. Okay.
Yes.
I love EM. Yes, 100%. And
by the way,
and Robert too.
by the way, and one thing about Wild Night Wednesdays, you have two fan base. Okay, you have two extremes, and you have the people like myself. I like to think I'm more in the middle. I'm not an extreme left or right. I support Tua and I supported Brian.
You're a flip flopper like me. That's fine.
Yes, exactly. I'm in the middle.
Feel free to put on your flip flops and let's straddle that fence, baby. Let's walk along that fence and I'm good. With it. I'm okay with that.
But that you have two. You have two that one type of fan base that wants to give wants an apology letter for him for Tua, and then you have this fan base that feels that the Dolphins are just feeding them garbage.
Well, Dolphins Twitter was in full form today with the Deshaun Elliott tweet. Let me tell you, and Dolphins Twitter did not. Let me tell you, they went after him and they went after each other. It was something. But so my show obviously has evolved throughout the years, right? And the last couple of years. And so
for those people that on Twitter that got offended by Elliott's comments, I have this for you.
Butthurt Report.
Go ahead.
For me, I've been trying to make things unique, right? I had Daniel Yafusi for like a year.
Yeah. That was one of my favorite segments.
And I've gotten to work. Ali Dolph Freaky had a show on my channel for a while, and I've gotten to work with amazing, wonderful people like Alex Dono of Locked On Canes, and he works at WQAM, and he also works for the 5 Reasons Sports Network, and I've gotten to work with Big E from
the Locked On Canes, by the way.
Yep, I said Locked On Canes, yeah. So, and I've also had Kyle Krabs on of Locked On Fins,
yeah.
And then I've obviously had TD Fins talk on, and I've had Dougley Durong on, and then obviously a lot of the newcomers too. You guys, the Fins Tailgate over here. Larry's been on my show before. There's beautiful people throughout this content creator space, and I just want to see people come together. But the point I was trying to make is talking about how my show's evolved. Monday, Tuesdays now I do with Nando Talk, right? Hot Take Tuesday, and Wednesday I have Wildin' Out Wednesday, where I let everybody come onto the panel and feel free to wild out. And if I feel like fans are in charge of that show. If somebody's wilding out too much, you can get them out of there. Yeah. And it's fun. People enjoy it. It's not for everybody. I can admit that. But 98% of my viewership, their favorite show. I've had fans call up. I wish you did Wildin' Out Wednesday more. I wish you did Wildin' Out Wednesday more. I love it. But I feel like Wildin' Out Wednesday is special because it's one day a week.
Yeah,
and because
I got you.
I don't do it that often. I do.
Mhm.
There's a Thursday here or a Monday here. I've done panels for an hour, but Wildin' Out Wednesday is its own thing, right?
Yeah.
So, and then Thursday I do with Cameron, and Cameron with East 32 Dolphins Tailgate has been absolutely amazing to me. I went to Cameron a little over a couple of years ago, and I've been working with him now with the doing stuff with his amazing tailgate that he has. And was able during my pregame show that I had with Tail Greeter and East 32 to be able to bring on people to, hey, I'm going to walk away. You guys sit and talk on the pregame show and sit there and Hard Rock Stadium, and Color's been on there, and El Capitan, I believe. I don't know if El Capitan's been there or not, but I think he has.
I know Lewis.
Lewis obviously has been up there. Andrevius,
Von Joe.
the Smoke Show.
Yeah.
Yep. Von Joe, and it's been a beautiful thing. Chef Zhu, obviously. So it's been one of the best parts about doing this on a day in, day out basis is getting to meet some of the people that I've gotten to meet, developing and forging some of the friendships that I've gotten to have. And look, everybody's not going to like everybody, but I believe that there's good in everyone. And I try to see everybody for good. There are certain people that don't necessarily promote that as much as I would like, but who am I, And that's what I believe I'm here for, spreading kindness, positivity, and love. And that's what I'm going to keep doing.
Yeah, exactly. So what was your first Dolphin game that you went to? Because obviously you've been to a lot of Dolphin games, but do you remember your first Dolphin game?
I do. So growing up in North Carolina, I never got a chance to go. And my dad never was going to take me or anything. So I was married to my wife, and I flew down. At this point, Solo and I were only doing something here or there. My son is 9, so this would have been 10 plus years ago, Shake.
Wow.
And Solo and I were just kind of developing our relationship. I didn't even call him when I came down. I called up Manny from the Bandits, Dolphin Bandits. Remember?
I know who they are. Yep. I follow them on Facebook.
Yep. Manny picked me up from the airport. I wanted to go. It was the Ravens playing the Dolphins down in Miami. So I flew down there. Manny picked me up in his awesome Jeep that he had. And I stayed at the team hotel, Shula's Steakhouse, and this this hotel were, I don't know where it was at, but it had Shula's Steakhouse attached to the hotel, and the Dolphins players stayed there. And I don't know how I figured that out, but I found out through a back channel where the Dolphins, they were like, they stay at a hotel the night before a home game. They're like, yes. So I flew in that Saturday. And to the team hotel, and that morning I wake up. That Sunday morning, wake up. I wake up early. I'm excited. I'm stoked. Right, Shake?
Yeah.
I get a phone call from my wife, and I, talking with her. She's like, "Are you sitting down?" I was like, "What are you talking?" Like, I'm getting scared now.
Yeah.
She's like, "I took a pregnancy test." What? She's like, I took 2 pregnancy tests.
Wow.
What? I'm pregnant. I was like, well, I would hope if you took 2, you got confirmation of it. So I found out the morning I went to my very first Miami Dolphins game that my wife was pregnant with our son at that time. And I didn't know it was a son at that point, but I knew she was pregnant. And I was elated and I was so excited. And I went back to the room because I was eating breakfast when she called. And where my room was at the team hotel, there's a window. And there's a parking lot, and it's a roped off parking lot, and it was the players' parking lot. So I am able to open up my window, and I have a ball and a mini helmet. And as players are coming to get to their cars to leave to go to the stadium, I am getting people to come to my window and sign autographs. They're at the window. So I got, I don't know, a dozen autographs that morning. And it was,
that's awesome.
It was the coolest thing ever.
Did they at least win the game?
Well, so I'm not done. So Manny comes and picks me up, and he had field passes at that time. They were called Ford Field Passes, I think they were called, and you could be on the field during the game. There was like, I don't know how many there were, but there was a limited number of these passes. So for the game, I was on the field for the entire game with Manny. They had a roped off section for fans. And they lost the game by a field goal, the Dolphins.
Who they play, by the way?
The Ravens. They played the Ravens. And but it was still the coolest experience ever to go to. And that was my first game, man. And I remember it. And I loved it. And I met some new people there. And it's not what it is today. Today's totally different because now I have this totally different relationship with a lot of different people in East 32, and the tailgate and the pre-game's all part of it. But man, back then, 10 plus years ago, man, it was that day. I'll never forget that day. It was great.
That's awesome, man. I remember. And how would you compare the stadium back then to the stadium now?
So I was on the field the whole day, sweating up a storm. Cause, as a matter of fact, probably have a picture of it that I could share with you. It was photos, albums. I gotta go to like the first time I ever went to a game. Oh man, I don't even know if I see it in here. I thought I had it like there, but actually I might have it right in here. So it was hot. It was so hot that game. The sun was beating down on me on the field. And as you know, I'm a pretty big guy. Mm-hmm. And so it was a lot. It was a lot, but I enjoyed it, man. So the way the stadium is now is 10 times better than what it was 10 years ago. I love the Hard Rock. What is it called? The
canopy.
The canopy. I enjoy that. I love the tailgating here and at the Hard Rock. It's a lot more comfortable. The seats are 10 times more comfortable than they were. I think Stephen Ross, despite how you may or may not feel about him, put a lot of money into how this stadium is, and it's 10 times better than what it was 10 years ago.
How would you compare the Baltimore Ravens stadium to the Dolphins stadium?
M&T Bank Stadium, which is what the stadium in Baltimore is called, is decent. Like I've sat 10 rows behind the visiting team's bench, and I've sat on the very last row to watch Tua Tagovailoa throw 6 touchdowns and come back and win the game. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget that. That was a great day. But it's all right. It's got it. Nothing will ever be Miami, and I think Miami's Hard Rock Stadium's the greatest place on earth. I really believe that.
By the way, I remember when I first started listening to your show. This was probably week 3 because you started last year. Brian Flores' last year, so I started listening to I believe week 2, week 3, and it just popped up on my algorithm. So I just started listening, and what's kind of sucked was every week I started listening was Therapy Monday until we went on that streak that you said that we were going to start doing, which was, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So if the Dolphins lost, it was Therapy Monday, and if the Dolphins won, it was Victory Monday,
of course.
And so that's what, you know.
That's why I miss
original. People have done that for a while, but you know, I loved it.
By the way, I got to know you. You know what I mean? So I know that besides the Miami sports music, you're a big fan of
Bubba Wallace, baby. I love me some Bubba.
And you're also a fan of.
I'm really big into NASCAR, man. I love NASCAR.
And you're also a fan of this guy right here?
LeBron James. Best basketball player to ever play, as far as I'm concerned. I don't care what you Michael Jordan people have to say. It's LeBron all day. Yes. I love LeBron. I think he's amazing.
Yeah. By the way,
and let me tell you, the 4 years he played in Miami, it was the coolest thing ever for me.
Yeah, it was.
Because I was never a really big NBA fan. I grew up in North Carolina. College basketball was always bigger to me, right? And as far as college basketball was concerned, I grew up rooting for the Tar Heels, and college football, I rooted for the Miami Hurricanes. I didn't have I mean, I grew up and down the East Coast, so for football, I always stuck with Miami. But with basketball, God, I hated Duke and loved the Tar Heels, right? And it's been fun watching Jim Larinaga and this Miami Hurricanes basketball team over the last few years. I've had a real appreciation for what he's done in the ACC and what he's done with that team. But nonetheless, for me, I never had an affiliation or my dad was never a big NBA fan. He liked the Celtics, but I hate Boston anything. I hate the Celtics. I hate the Red Sox. I hate the Patriots. Hate them all. Okay. And so I was never going to root for them. So I always liked college basketball more than the pros. But as I'm in my mid-30s, I remember being a kid watching ESPN, watching high school basketball games of LeBron James, and just thinking, oh my God, we're all witness to this absolutely amazing phenomenon. He's absolutely amazing. And wherever he goes, my loyalty goes. And I have no problem saying that. And I know I get killed for it, but I don't care. But the moment LeBron retires, I'm officially going all in on the Miami Heat. Like, I'll be a full-fledged Miami fan, and I won't be loyal to a player. I'll be loyal to the team.
Yeah, that's what's up. We also have
NFL bandwagon transfer form.
Yeah,
I don't need that for being a football fan, dude. I do not need that.
I know. I'm just saying these are for because next year we're gonna need them
Yeah. Well, look, we got
our
McDaniel. I love that. That's a great shirt, by the way. I'm all about that.
We got McDaniel and, of course, our chef in the kitchen.
Tua. Love me some Tua. Look, I'm very excited with the direction of this franchise is going. I know that there are some people that have their reservations about it. I'm not one of them. I think this is the best team that's been assembled by this organization in the last 20, 25 years. This team has already accomplished last year something that hasn't been done since the early 90s, mid 90s. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited for what the future of this team holds. And, that's why I did top 5 reasons Dolphin fans should be excited today on my show. And Clock Blockers, home of the #1 Miami fan morning show.
Exactly.
No plug. Small plug.
By the way, small plug. Hey, I plug my show on yours as well. So
yeah,
it's all fair game, baby. It's all love. But I look at it as every year it's its own entity. You can't judge last year from this. You could kind of see the direction, but every year is new. Injuries happen. Things occur during the season. It's like they say, a war of attrition. You never know what's going to happen during the season. So every year,
any given Sunday is a real thing, right? Any given Sunday is a real term. But Dolphin fans, it's funny you have that bandwagon form. The reality of the situation, Shake, is nobody, at least right now, maybe with Tyreek being here, I think there have been some bandwagon fans, and obviously the Alabama Tua fans. Mm-hmm. But before Tua, there was no such thing as a bandwagon Dolphin fan. Like, that term never existed before Tua. And I do believe that there were Alabama fans that said, wherever Tua goes, I'm going to root for that team. Like a young generation of that, right?
But the only pushback I give you is, believe it or not, I've met a lot of Dolphin fans, and a lot of them, and I mean a lot of them, were Dolphin fans jumped on the bandwagon because of Marino.
Oh, yeah.
How special he was.
But think about that for a second, right? Marino came on in 83. Football was not at its height of popularity. I mean, it was big. Don't get it twisted. We're coming off the 70s. Dolphins in the early 70s were great. The first Super Bowl, Dolphins winning the Super Bowl, the undefeated season, was Super Bowl 7. So by the time we're in the 80s, we're only at Super Bowl 14, 15, 16, 17, right? We're still in the infancy stage of what the NFL would become. And in the early 80s, when Marino gets drafted, there were people that liked the game of football, but there was no direct loyalty or affiliation to any, just because nobody knew that the Dolphins were going to be here for good. They were the undefeated team in the early 70s. But sports franchises as a whole, of staying in one place and staying there for years, unless you lived in Boston or New York, and hell, even New York, they've had multiple different franchises over the years. But unless you're a big name market, you're never guaranteed to keep your team for more than 20 or 30 years, right? And I'm saying at that time in the early 80s, right?
Well, I could do one better. I remember I was recapping the 70s Dolphins, right?
Yeah.
You had the Baltimore Colts, the St. Louis Cardinals, and the San Diego Chargers. All don't play in those markets anymore, which don't play in those markets.
They don't. And so when I've had somebody tell me, oh, I've had a million Dolphin fans tell me I became a Dolphins fan for Dan Marino. Hell, I did, right? I became a Dolphins fan for my dad. I fell in love with them because of Dan Marino. So to be fair, I think it was a totally different time in the early 80s and maybe even in the late 80s to be a fan. Nowadays, though, the NFL is so huge. If you're not already a direct fan of one of the 32 teams in the NFL, what are you doing, right? So I think that, but as I said earlier, especially in Alabama, they don't care about pro football. They care about Roll Tide. They care about college football.
Yeah, Oklahoma.
Exactly. So I don't have a problem with some of the fans saying, I love Tua, and wherever Tua goes, I will root for Tua. And as long as he's on the Dolphins, I'll root for the Dolphins because I love Tua. I don't see anything wrong with that, because growing up in North Carolina, I said the same thing about the Tar Heels in basketball, right? So, like, I love Vince Carter. I was a huge Vince Carter fan. Allen Iverson, growing up, near the Virginia Beach area, I loved me Allen Iverson. That guy was my guy. I didn't care about the Philadelphia 76ers. But so I got it from a basketball point of view. So I don't have a problem when somebody says, oh, I became a Dolphins fan because of Tua, or I became a Dolphins fan because of Dan Marino, whatever.
Yeah.
Whether you stay here or not, that's another story. Once you're here, if you go to another team, then I can admit the bandwagon jumping thing. So the bandwagon form, I think, as the Dolphins, I fully predict that they're going to be great this year. I do think there's going to be a lot of new fans coming into the family.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be difficult for some of these long tenured fans.
And what people don't realize is, and I'm very mindful of it now, but what you don't realize, a lot of the Tua fans aren't really also, I would say 50% of Tua fans there are Alabama fans. You also have to realize that there's Tua fans that are Samoan descent.
Samoan.
They root for Tua because he's a fellow Samoan, and not too many Samoans are quarterbacks. You know what I mean? So it's to see one of them in play the quarterback position means a lot to them. So that's why I'm very mindful as well. To respect.
I don't hate on people that I do not hate or have any ill will towards people that became Dolphin fans because of Tua Tagovailoa.
Me neither.
Welcome, love you here. Hope you stay here even after Tua's gone. But if you don't, I totally get the affiliation to a player because I'm with that with LeBron James, so I get it.
So before we move on to the numbers game and then build the ultimate team, what would you say, since you in your show, is your funniest, the most out there conspiracy theory?
Oh,